Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. My name is Ayuba Ilya. Of course, as always, I'm not alone. Good morning, Stella.
Good morning, Ayuba, and it's a delight to be here as always. Good morning, Nigerians, and thank you for welcoming us into your homes. My name is Stella Iyachi.
And the month of August has been August indeed, with the rains every day, and we've been devising means of how to get by, here in the capital city.
Yeah, remember about 2 weeks ago when it rained every day? It was almost like every day for an entire week.
So
I'm going to miss the rains though.
Right.
I like rain. Aside from the floods, I like rain.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at what's on the table this morning. Quite a number of issues. The headlines goes, ASU extends strike action indefinitely.
Kuje inmates protest colleague's death.
South Africa anti-corruption. Prosecutors arrest former executives logistics company Transnet.
Now let's take a look at the details. The Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, on Monday extended its 6-month-old strike indefinitely until the federal government meets its demands. A member of the union who pleaded anonymity confirmed the development following a National Executive Council meeting of the striking teachers at the University of Abuja. It said the union extended the industrial action after reviewing progress reports on ongoing negotiations with the federal government in the last 4 weeks when ASU rolled over the strike. Last week, the Minister of Education, Adamu Adamu, said the federal government had addressed most of the union's demands, including the release of 50 billion naira for the payment of earned allowances for the academic and non-academic staff of universities.
Now, there was tension at the Kuje Correctional Center as inmates early Monday protested the death of their colleague. The arrest was triggered following the death of the inmate who was allegedly not given prompt medical attention. Meanwhile, some inmates attempted to escape from the facility amidst the tension but were prevented by the warders. Officials of the prison confirmed the death of the inmate.
And to the international scene, South African prosecutors have arrested several former executives at the public logistics company Transnet, which is at the center of a high-profile investigation into corruption during Jacob Zuma's tenure as president. On Monday, South Africa's National Prosecuting Authority said Transnet's former chief executive officer Brian Molefe and finance chief Anna Singh were among 4 people held in connection with a multi-billion-dollar corruption case. The arrested appeared before a court in Johannesburg on Monday and were granted a 50,000 rand, an equivalent of about $3,000 bail. An NPA spokesperson confirmed that the executives are facing charges of fraud and breaching public finance regulations linked to a $5.5 million corruption and fraud case surrounding the 2015 procurement of more than 1,000 locomotives. Transnet owns all of South Africa's rail, ports, and pipelines. It is the logistical backbone of the continent's most advanced economy.
Now, let's take a look at some packages. Pressure groups are made up of like-minded individuals whose main aim is to influence government policies to their favor. One of the major ways or strategies in which they use to influence government policies is through strike actions, which is the strategy ASU has been using in the last 7 months to get government to address their demands. In this report, Noel Samson brings us the reactions of parents and students concerning the industrial action, which has metamorphosed from warning strikes to an indefinite strike as announced by the union on Monday, August of 29th. Take a look.
Nigerians were on Monday again greeted with the news breaking from the stables of ASU concerning the continuation of the ongoing industrial action, which has lasted for 6 months due to government failure to meet up with their demands. They claim to have had deadlock meetings with government officials, hence the industrial action has to continue until government yields to their demands. As expected, parents whose children have been home for over a year have been reacting to the latest news.
It's disgusting. For upward 7 months now, students have been home. Their future has been kind of delayed, kind of, because there is nothing doing. The parents are anxious to go, and government doesn't seem care about it.
I believe this strike has lingered for too long. Nigeria has never had it so bad. And if you look at the education sector, it has to be overhauled. Gabadea. Sincerely speaking, the architectural, what's it called, the structure, the educational structure has to be overhauled. This is a country we live in. We have a minister of education. 5 months, 6 months, getting to 7 months, and now they are extending again.
The students who are at the receiving end also lent their voices to the new development.
Well, the ASUU strike is actually causing delay for me right now, because now I'm actually in my final year, but I can't graduate because of them. I'm still at home doing nothing, thinking they'll call it off very soon, but they are not saying anything about it. So I want the government to call it off all the time so I can graduate, and because I have other plans to do, but this strike now is delaying me.
The government have placed an age for people that will go and serve. Imagine being at home for how many years, and then they'll now come and expect you not to forge your age to serve. I do think it's unfair. We have to be sincere to ourselves as Nigerians. We have to get about this because people don't really care about us.
Despite their frustration and anger, they still appeal to government to address the issue of contention to enable them return to school.
And government should be gracious enough to let the schools back by all means.
So I really like the government to just have mercy on us and find solution to it, because I believe that in every solution, any problem, there's a solution to it.
Nigerians are optimistic that both the government and the union will come to an agreement and end the lingering industrial action. Noah Samson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Thank you, Noel, for that report. Now, the skills of sewing using sacks and other leather products is not common in most communities. In this report, Trust TV's Abubakar Abdullahi visited a local sack sewing factory in Lafia, Nasarawa State, where an NC graduate is leading a group of youth and minors to earn a living. Let's take the report.
Angwan Makama, where this local sack sewing factory is located, is one of the oldest areas in Lafia, the capital of Nasarawa State, and the most workers here are people who are born and brought up in the area. Mohammed Ubangari, an NCE graduate, is the head of this factory. He said he started learning the trade of sack sewing when he could not find a job after graduation. He said the trade has, however, been rewarding financially, adding that though the trade is not common, he has a quite number of youths and children who are working under him. He spoke extensively on the activities taking place in the factory.
We're getting our own customers, they have brought it for us, we buy it, and some others they also brought their own, we also saw it. And even in our own these premises, we saw it and sell it for who need it. We get many customers from some villages and the part of the boundaries of the Nasarawa State they are buying. Even some people they live in the Benue State, they are buying this thing and spread this thing during some of the dry seasons. Even the rainy season, some they are covering their own materials. They don't want the water they are touching it.
He said the trade has been in existence for over 20 years and many have benefited from the proceeds of the business.
It is the work who also get a benefit because I use this work to assist myself in my own tertiary educations in college education Akwanga and assist myself with this work. And I didn't marry bait. I get many benefits in this work since I started this working. Why? Because I joined my own educations, joined my own life. I can't bother myself to need a government workers. No, I enjoy this work till my own ending of the life.
He then called on the government and other stakeholders to assist them with industrial machineries to be able to produce in large quantity and faster.
All right, now road ethics or safety rules are guidelines put in place to protect road users, be it pedestrian, cyclist or motorist. But how many users are aware of the conventions and how many practice them? In this report, Chiamaka Nwafor takes a look at the road ethics for pedestrians in particular.
The road is a space consisting of many users who sometimes, if not most, will interface with each other. The motorist, who has to drive with the pedestrian and cyclist in mind, and vice versa. There are rules to help keep everyone safe and bring accidents to the barest minimum. To mention a few, use of pavement or suitable footpaths where provided. Walk on the left side of the road facing oncoming traffic where footpaths are not provided. Before you cross a road, look left, right, and look left again. When the road is clear, walk directly and quickly across while still looking out. Use a zebra or pedestrian crossing. There are many of these conventions which even children should be aware of. But how well do pedestrians know the road ethics put in place to safeguard them?
When crossing the road, you should always look left and right. You should always look to see if the traffic lights are the colors like green, red, yellow. When crossing the road, you should always follow the zebra crossing, not like where the cars pass.
I don't know what road ethics are.
I know about traffic lights. When it turns green or red, you should stop. If you are using the pedestrian, I can identify those ones. But I think it's more than that. So I'm not proud to say I don't know. I want to learn.
I know that some pathways like this are made for pedestrians, and also if you are to cross the road, you need to cross where there's a zebra crossing. But maybe unfortunately, no, some of us don't know this. Even some drivers, when you get to the zebra crossing, that's when they will speed up.
Is there a need to enforce these conventions, and what agency should do that? Certainly not the FRSC, if the FCT sector commander is to go by. He says though the Corps is saddled with the safety of all road users, its core mandate is to the motorist.
Road safety is a collective responsibility. Now, if you look at the Act establishing the road safety, the Act gives power to the Road Safety Corps in the area of vehicular movement. The road safety as an organization does not have the power to arrest individuals.
Nevertheless, the education of pedestrians on road ethics is a work in progress.
A sensitization of Nigerians on road ethics is a work going on, and we still have so much to do, but so much is being done to ensure that people get to know what they are supposed to do while they're on the road.
A lot has been said about road safety without any clear-cut agenda holding pedestrians responsible about protecting themselves on the road. Sadly, there are too many agencies on the road duplicating functions on the same space, and most of the time, not even doing the job right. Chiamaka Nwafor, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Now, residents of the Federal Capital Territory have called on the FCT administration to properly regulate the activities of dispatch riders within the territory. The call came following growing reports of the excesses of the riders, who many believe lack proper training on the use of roads and therefore cause traffic violations. Let's take the report.
Driving through the streets of Abuja, Nigeria's capital city, on any working day, one is likely to come across dispatch riders on their way to deliver parcels and messages from one end of the city to another. In most cases, these riders are seen going against traffic rules, which in some cases have led to serious accidents on the roads. This act of theirs make many people wonder if some of these dispatched riders are qualified and properly sensitized on the use of the roads by relevant authorities.
We have conditions we have set for them. First of all, before you ride that bicycle, you are supposed to have what we call rider certification cards. Before you get that, you are supposed to have passed through the training where you are taught the traffic codes. It is believed that you understand it. But
what the complaint some of them are bringing up is the owners of this business will give them 10 minutes to go and deliver something from Nyanya to Lugbe, or 5 minutes to deliver at Kubwa. And the next thing they do is to look for the shortest cut. When you don't feel that your life means anything, government will prove to you that your life is important. Not only your life, the life of others. You don't have to be making use of the road and endanger the life of others. So we will preach all these things. It's for you to learn and imbibe them. When you fail to imbibe them and you go contrary to the provisions of the law, we will not hesitate to handle you the way the law says you must be handled.
Joshua Sunday is one out of the many dispatch riders plying Abuja roads. He tells us why some dispatch riders are most times in a hurry, which leads to traffic violations.
Some people that is order for the food, they normally, because the customer that is order that food, you pressurize on you to run, to meet up. Some of us have that accident, but you tell the person in your mind that look at what is happening though. It's not only me. Traffic there on the roads. I cannot be beating traffic. Beating the traffic and you have accidents. You are on your own.
The head of Public Relations Office of the DRTS, however, urged dispatch riders to operate according to laid down rules while helping to ease the service demands of numerous businesses in the Federal Capital City. Martia Umar, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right, now about 3 years after the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, which came with series of lockdowns and deployment of several measures by the Health Ministry to curb the spread of the infection, vendors of non-pharmaceutical items are complaining of making little or no sales. Trust TV's Aisha Salihu takes a look at what has become of the COVID-19 merchandise and now reports.
Accessing public places during the peak of the COVID-19 required wearing of face and nose masks, use of hand sanitizers, regular hand washing, and strict adherence to physical distancing, especially at social gatherings. There was also an advisory encouraging all to take the required number of the vaccine jabs, among other measures as stipulated by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control. These and more became the new norm, all in a bid to curb the spread of the dreaded coronavirus, reduce number of hospitalization and fatalities. But this has changed as people now gradually go about their normal lives without needing some of the non-pharmaceutical items that once came in handy as lifesavers.
Non-pharmaceutical products that were used against COVID-19, they are dropped drastically. In fact, far below 30%, because the government is no longer compulsory for the populace to use it again. So people use it whenever they want. So majorly it's people in the medical cycle, in the school, or in the ministries. They come to get it whenever they want, but not as before. We are not stocking more like before. The ones we stock, we are just we make sure that those ones are being sold.
With the relaxation of some of the COVID-19 protocols and the rise in the country's access and administration of vaccines, which, by the way, is yet to achieve the 70% herd immunity projection for the year 2022, as stated by the Federal Ministry of Health through the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, these vendors wish it is business as usual as they count their losses.
For some times now, I've been selling it, and during that COVID-19 period, we sell a much, and I think some days we do sell, if not, we go home with 5,000, 7,000, but these days 1,700, sometimes 500. So it's very, 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 it has, since the drops of, maybe because most people are no longer using it again. Time now, somebody will tell you they are no longer using those masks, 15 naira. So you see, at the end of the day, nothing to show.
Affecting my business very well, because I feed myself from here during the COVID-19 period. But now, people are no more used to it.
Although the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19, while commending the country's vaccination feat so far in parts of the country, is advocating the continuous usage of the non-pharmaceutical items to avert further spread. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right, thank you, Aisha, for that report. With that, we take a short break now, and when we return, we'll look at what the newspapers are saying for today. Please stay.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA. To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
But in a situation where you find that empathy, look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying. If you are just joining, you're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. Time for us to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak. And now we'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning says, "No more negotiation with FG," says ASU. The writer says, declares indefinite strike, lecturers resigning in droves, and UNILAG, they are heartless NANS, that's National Association of Nigerian Students. And then you have their decisions not binding on state universities, pro-chancellors say. And that's on page 5. All the details are there on page 5. Then below the pictorial, you'll see FG may borrow 11 trillion naira for 2023 budget as deficit rises above 100%. At the very bottom, hush puppy, court bars FG from extraditing Kyari to US. 2023, politicians see election as war, says INEC. Woman lures kids with biscuits, steals 2-year-old in Niger. Below the masthead, quite interesting stories. Crowd defies downpour as Atiku, Ayu, others receive Shekarau on page 26. Banditry. FG releases 6.25 billion naira for cattle ranches in Katsina on page 27. Traders count losses as flood sacks Kano's Kantinkwari market on page 3. These are the top stories on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper.
And let's take a look at the Leadership newspaper. The Leadership newspaper has a lead that says it's still on the ASU strike. After 199 days of industrial action, ASU loses ground as more state varsities pull out of strike. Pro-chancellors want union democratized as lecturers extend strike indefinitely. Say unions' quest for funding varsities outdated. Slam Osodeke for calling state varsities quacks. We've met over 80% of lecturers' demands, federal government. They have lost Nigerian sympathy. Also, on right above that, we have a story that says, Shekarau hobnobs with APC, NNPP, PDP in 3 months. Beneath that, court restrains PMB, NBC from shutting down 53 broadcast stations. We also have a story here, business story, Dangote to save Forex through 40% sugar import substitution. Also on the Leadership, Ohaneze to pick consensus presidential candidate from Southeast. And right just below the masthead, we have the story here. Federal government piles more debts on next president with 11 trillion borrowing for 2023. Also, groom, 6 wedding guests die. Bride, 8 others hospitalized in Enugu. We also have the story here. Court rejects federal government's request to extradite Kyari to the United States. These are the major stories on the Leadership newspaper.
All right, so let's join our guest reviewer before we look at other papers. We have joining us virtually Hajia Zainab Okinu. She's the board chair, Blueprint Newspapers. She joins us to give perspectives to some of the stories on the front pages. Good morning, Hajia.
Good morning.
Yes, good to have you join
Thanks
us
for having me.
on Daybreak. Yes, thank you. All right, well, you heard it. One thing that is very, it's everywhere on our papers this morning, or one story rather, that is everywhere, is the issue of ASU. Yesterday we saw that they have decided that the strike is now going to be indefinite. I mean, this is coming after several meetings with the federal government, and now they are saying no more meetings with federal government. It appears that they are fed up with whatever discussions they are having. Perhaps there's a missing trust somewhere. What's your take?
Okay. Good morning again. Let me take it from your last statement. It appears that ASU is fed up. If ASU is fed up, the federal government too is fed up, and parents are even fed up. So there's an extent you can fight a cause. It gets to a stage where everything will rebound on you. I think ASU has got to that stage. They have lost the sympathy of Nigerians. They have even lost the sympathy of the students they claim to be protecting. I, for one, have always wanted ASU's demands granted, because at least they veil whatever their personal interest is, they veil it with the fact that they want education resuscitated. We want our students, our universities to be able to compete with other universities in the world. Universities are not properly funded. We know all this, and whenever ASU comes up with these demands, they always have, excuse me, they always have the sympathy of Nigerians. So, but more than 6 months down the line, and we are still recalcitrant. They should be able to come to a negotiating table. I know they've done that several times, and they have not been able to succeed. I also don't like the fact that the minister seems to be talking tough. If we all want the best for our children, if we want the best for our educational system, we should all sheath our sword and come to the negotiating table. Again, there's something like indefinite. I mean, talking about indefinite strike again is wrong for us to say that. Already they seem to be losing the ground. But because they seem to be losing ground because some universities are pulling out. So at the end of the day, I hope they will not have to beg to come back to the universities that they are now trying to shut down.
All right,
you wanted to say something?
All right. You say negotiations have been ongoing between the federal government and ASU and the lecturers. Also, some persons are saying maybe it's time for a third party to step in. Maybe it's time for the National Assembly members, or maybe even the Council of State, because at this point it appears as if the federal government and ASU, both of them cannot do it alone. What do you think?
I think I agree with that. The National Assembly as our representative should come in, and the Council of State as our elders and former presidents or heads of state and some other like minds should come in, because if it is beyond ASU and the Federal Ministry of Education, it shouldn't be beyond this. And we really need to take education seriously. I do not know where else in the world where schools are shut for more than 6 months, although it has happened somewhere close by, I think in Ghana or so. That still shows that we Africans are not yet ready to education. And that's why we continue to export our best, while our students, for those who can afford it, they continue to go abroad for their own education. And then what that means is capital flight. Anyway.
Okay, so ASU have said time and again that this strike is not really about them. It's about the tertiary educational system in Nigeria. So don't you think that Nigerians are channeling their frustration at the wrong place? Don't you think that Nigerians should perhaps be joining ASU in solidarity, looking at the fact that it is about saving the tertiary educational system in Nigeria?
I made a reference to that earlier on, and I said ASU has always veiled their own personal interest by saying we're trying to save tertiary education in Nigeria. No problem about that, because we all know that our tertiary institutions are not how or what they should be. So I totally agree with them on that basis. But remember that what they are fighting for now is this no work, no pay thing, because for more than 6 months they didn't work and they want to be paid, and the federal government is saying no. That's their main problem now. I think basically the federal government has met some of their demands. So, but that shouldn't be a problem if we all adhere to our labor.
Yes, Hajia, there's the issue of the no work, no pay, but the union is still insisting that none of the agreement has been met. In fact, at this point, nobody even knows who is telling Nigerians the truth, because the Ministry of Education, through the minister, says 80% of their demands have been met. ASU says nothing has been done.
That shouldn't be a problem if we are all open to each other, if there's transparency in the process. But the federal government should tell us what they have met among ASU's demands. And ASU members or ASU executive too should let us know what the federal government has said or has some of their demands, if they have been met. I don't think that should be a problem. I mean, if we really know what we are doing. The federal government cannot tell me that they do not have the wherewithal to make public what they have offered ASU. If they too are committed to this negotiation, if they are committed to the Nigerian students returning to schools, everybody is tired of the whole process.
Exactly.
Every one of us is affected one way or the other. I also have my children, my nieces, my nephews,
you know,
in some of these universities are at home now, and I'm already seeing frustrations.
You know, Hajia,
it's so bad, and it can lead to depression.
You know, that's exactly the point. You know, as you talk about what the federal government has offered, that they should make it public. And we have had, I mean, interviews with members of ASU here, and they have said that there is nothing on the table. There is no offer. You know, even when we read in the media stories that there's been 100 billion naira that has been set aside for tertiary institutions and another 50 billion naira and the likes. They will tell you that, well, they only saw that in the press, and that there was no such offer put to them. They have accused the federal government several times of lying to members of the public and the rest of them. So it appears that there is no trust. Even if the federal government have made those promises, ASU doesn't seem, to trust the government, going by previous agreements that have been had. In fact, the renegotiation committee that was set up had several agreements, and which is why they are on the current strike that they are in right now as regards the implementation of those agreements. So there's an issue of trust there. So if ASU should go back to the classrooms now, what's the guarantee that the federal government will do as they have promised?
There's no guarantee. And going by their antecedent, that the federal government's antecedent, they failed so many agreements, they failed to practicalize or execute so many agreements in the past. So I think ASU is ready for a showdown, which they have already gone far into. And I'm only worried about my concern is our children that are involved. Otherwise, I would have said, well, let the war begin or let the war continue. But the federal government should be serious, honestly. I mean, it doesn't speak well of them that at the twilight of this government's, they want to leave a big mess for the incoming government. But as you well know, at this level, the government is just a lame dog. And it would be too bad if this is the legacy that the Buhari government wants to leave for the next government, or even for himself. I mean, to not speak well of him that ASU will be on strike for almost a year at the end of his government. I remember that ASU was on strike again in 2020. So I don't know who is saying the truth between the two of them, whether it's ASU or the federal government, but I think it shouldn't be too difficult for us to find out. I mean, maybe it's one of the assignments that you can dig into, or we journalists should dig into. It shouldn't be, what is the federal government offering? Let us see it. Let us see it. What is ASU saying? We already know what ASU is saying. Let us see what the federal government has to offer.
All right, Hajia, let us move on to other stories. Now, let's take a look at some of the stories on the Punch newspaper for today. The Punch newspaper has a lead story that says 19.76 trillion budget proposal, 12 trillion naira deficit worries federal government, debt may hit 54 trillion. Then we have riders that say revenue shortfalls to hamper capital projects funding. Federal government says insecurity threatens FDIs. Nigeria economy shrinks by 63 billion naira, 28 sectors struggle. Government decries petrol subsidy. Airlines cut workforce over aviation crisis. Families groan as kerosene price rises by 99%. Also, we have a story here. We have a pictorial on the Punch newspaper that has a caption, explosion near RCCG camp injures 2 Razors trucks. Beneath that, police plan fresh screening for protesting constables. Man arrested for stealing 50-year-old child in Lagos. Generator fumes allegedly kills Enugu groom wedding guest. Also, just above the masthead, we have 6 of 10 doctors leaving Nigeria. This is coming from the Association of Resident Doctors. Wike vows to name candidates planning looting. Work for Atiku's victory, Shekara urges supporters. And then just beneath that, court stops Kyari's US extradition. Federal government reviews judgment. These are the major stories on the Punch newspaper.
All right, so let's take a look at The Nation, on The Nation newspaper. The lead story says, PDP crisis setback for Atiku, Wike reconciliation. Atiku's men rally party organs for chairman Ayu. Something will happen soon, says Rivers governor. And then you'll also find ASU declares total indefinite strike. That's a story we dealt with. World Bank excludes Nigeria from $315 million food security cash. Court declines government's request to extradite Abba Kyari to the U.S. I am here for higher calling, says Tinubu. Gas-powered buses for use on Marina Aja-Ekpe route. You also have votes for capital projects unlikely in budget 2023, says Finance Minister.
All right, Hajia, I think let's take a look at the stories. Hajia? All right, let's take a look at the lead story on the Punch. 12 trillion deficit worries federal government. Debt may hit 54 trillion. It appears that the debt profile of the country just keeps going up, and a lot of people and experts feel that nothing tangible is being done to stem this rise. What do you think?
You mean the rise in our debt?
Yes, in the debt profile.
Debt profile. Oh. Well, I don't think the government is interested in doing anything about it. I mean, what do you mean by nothing is being done? The very people who should do something are the ones doing the borrowing. So, which is so sad because towards the end of Obasanjo's regime in 2006, 2007, when we had debt relief and were jubilating that for once, we're not going to owe, not just for ourselves, but for our children. Subsequent governments had tried to borrow a bit here and there, but this government has made borrowing an act. I mean, it's as if nothing can be done without borrowing. Even little things that we should be able to do for ourselves are not being done without borrowing. And the very people, they are the ones in government who are borrowing. They are also the ones that can do something about it. The only set of Nigerians that can stop them from borrowing is the National Assembly. But you know, the government is incapable to the National Assembly. The National Assembly is not truly independent. So, all right. So we wait and see when they leave office, and then that's when we'll know the truth. Right now, I think that should be our major problem now. Instead of all this election, wicked, this, that, our main problem should be we should be able to tell this government to stop, because this debt is not just for them. It's not for this generation. Generation after us will continue to pay this debt. Let's borrow for the future. Each time the government says it needs to borrow, it comes up with things are tough, and of course the economic situation is bad everywhere. But some persons have said that the cost of governance in Nigeria
is partly responsible for where we are as a country. I would like you to speak to that. And also, do you think that the implementation of the Orosaya report will help in any way? Hello, Hajia.
Yeah, so I got to a certain level, and let me speak on the, you mentioned Orosaya report. What did you say?
I said that each time the government wants to justify the borrowing, it talks about the fact that the general economy across the world is bad, and it's not just Nigeria, and things are tough. But then a lot of people have said that the cost of governance is partly responsible for Nigeria's problem, and that not a lot has been done to tackle that or reduce it. So I'd like you to speak to that.
Yes, I am interested in this issue of cost of governance in Nigeria, because that's, to me, where our problem is. I remember that the Buhari government promised to reduce the cost of government and even mentioned the idea of presidential fleet, reducing it, but we haven't had or seen much of that. Each government official in Nigeria, or let's say minister, let's be practical about it. There's no minister that does not go about with at least, let's be modest, at least 6 or 7 cars. All these cars are fueled. There are staff attached to them. There are governors in this country that have up to 200 aides. I'm talking at the state level, at sub-national level, and at the federal government level, you cannot even quantify it. At the federal government level, there's so much waste. So cost of governance is our major problem. If Nigeria wants to, we know that there's a global recession, there's a problem, inflation is a global thing now. But while other countries are doing something practical to nip the problem in the bud, such as reducing governance and even cost of governance and even palliatives for the citizens, we do not see our own palliatives. I don't know whether you have seen your own. I have not seen anything. And we keep even increasing the number of MDAs. I know at the last count, there must have been at least almost 10 agencies have been created in the last 7 years. So before you go back to Orosaya report, if you are sincere, if the government is sincere about reducing cost of governance, it's not just about the civil service setup, as bad as that too is. It's not just about MDAs, as bad as that too is. They have to first show good faith in reducing cost of governance right from the presidency to from the executive generally, both at the presidency and at the state level, down to even the local government level. So if we see today that all these executive jets have been sold off, maybe we'll keep only 1 or 2. We'll be happy. We'll know that the government is serious. And all the aides of the president, who are in hundreds, most have reduced the number. We'll be happy. And even you and I will be ready to do something, because this thing requires sacrifice on all fronts. So, but I have not seen that sincerity on their part. So while I agree that there are too many MDAs, and that's where the Orosaya report comes in, to reduce it, to match some, to reduce, and probably scrap some of them, I agree that it's good. But you know what that will do to us again? It will create more unemployment. It will surely create more unemployment for our people, because right now, what's the percentage of civil servants?
All right.
Perhaps maybe about 10%. And this 10%, you know the number of dependents that they have.
All right.
So when you reduce the number of MDAs and you reduce the number of staff, and you put some more people into you throw more people into the unemployment market, you also have social crimes.
All right, Adja, so let's quickly look at the Guardian newspaper to see what they have there on the front page. as well as the This Day newspaper. Now, The Guardian leads with the 2023 FG to borrow 11 trillion naira, spend 3.36 trillion naira on subsidy. Nigeria to spend 19.76 trillion naira next year as deficit jumps by 54%. Government may not fund capital projects in 2023, says Finance Minister. Petrol subsidy to remain till mid-2023. We also have Ayu Wike continual war of words amid reconciliation talks. Bandits force Niger magistrate courts to relocate. And then you have beneath the pictorial, Obi Dati Media Office tackles Tinubu's group for comparing Peter Obi with Asiwaju. And then you have Obore Vori appreciates God citizens on returning as Delta PDP governor candidate. And then you also have court dismisses suit for Abba Kyari's extradition. ASU extends strike indefinitely.
All right, let's quickly take a look at This Day. This Day has a late story that says, are you saying this? PDP not built on any individual. No person can destabilize it. 2023 poll, a referendum on APC, says Atiku boasts he's been tried, tested, receives Shekarau into party. Wike, this is coming from Wike, something will happen in PDP soon. And then we have another writer here. Ex-Kano governor writes INEC on new status to withdraw Senate ticket. And then beneath that, we'll have a pictorial of the reception when Shekarau was received into the party yesterday in Kano. Also above that, we have a statement from Atiku. I will ensure NNPCL is fully privatized, run on NLNG model. Also, just right above that, State Varsity Pro-Chancellors descend on ASU over Oshodeke's comment. Then just above the masthead, INEC, politicians see elections as war. These are the major stories on This Day for today.
All right, so I understand that we've lost Hajia to conclude on this newspaper review. But I mean, of interest to me is the this proposal, this budget proposal that we are now talking about. Time and again, government have said, well, if we don't borrow, how do we invest in capital projects? How do we do other things, you know, and all that? And I asked the question that all that we have borrowed over the years, shouldn't we be seeing
the dividends of what we have borrowed?
Yeah, the dividends of what we've been borrowing, especially since it has been argued that all the borrowings were invested, you know, into projects and all of that. By now, we should be generating revenue, you know, from some of those. And now it's even more worrisome when you look at the fact that the budget proposal has a deficit of 11 trillion naira, and the finance minister is saying that government may not fund capital projects in 2023. So that's, you know, that's even making it much more worrisome.
You know, that is why lots of experts have continued to say that if you don't cut cost of governance, that we'll continue to be on this track, because it's important to cut the cost of governance, and by a huge margin. I mean, no minister needs to move around with how many cars, because those cars need to be filled all the time. And then all the aids, there's no need for all of those aids. Like Hajia mentioned that there's a particular executive that has over 200 aids. To do what exactly? I mean, if those aids were working, Nigeria shouldn't be where they are.
We've not even talked about conferences abroad, you know, and the huge number of people that will be enlisted to embark on those conferences, things that should ordinarily, even things that ordinarily could happen here, right on our soil.
All these days, COVID-19 has brought the innovation of Zoom. So, I mean, some people can take their Zoom and save Nigeria the cost.
Exactly. And if you now think about, you know, the skyrocketing prices of cost of tickets now to fly out of the country and all of that, it even makes it even more worse. So let's just let's give Hajia. We understand that she's back now, so let's get her concluding thoughts on some of these stories. So Hajia, still on the budget proposal, maybe you should give your final words. Specifically, if you may, talk about, the issue of the fact that there have been several arguments put forward that no country grows without borrowing. So borrowing is not necessarily a bad thing, right? So Nigeria as well is not excluded from this. So how about the issue of, the dividends and the things that we should be reaping from what we have borrowed by now?
Well, borrowing is almost a global thing. I agree with that. But what you do with borrowing, as you have observed too, is what matters. And our people have always said that they are borrowing for capital projects. If you borrow for capital projects, we will see it, it will be visible. And for example, the railway before bandits cut short our joy. So we know the government borrowed to build the railway, and we saw it and we applauded it. But some of the borrowings we are seeing today is either frittered away, or the capital projects are overpriced, such that the borrowing will, in the end, will end up, the capital project will either not be executed properly or not executed at all. So that means something is wrong somewhere from the time of borrowing to the time of execution of whatever they want to use it for. So if only the government can cut down on borrowing and do an assessment, even do a self-assessment of what we have borrowed and what we have used it for, and then we can see it again. In the last few years, I haven't seen any improvement in where I live and where I work. So I want to see this, where this money is going into. I understand that Niger Bridge is almost completed. That's a good one. That's what we want to hear about every part of the country, and not borrowing, then someone somewhere will loot it or reloot the Abacha loot as well.
All right. So unfortunately, because of time, we have to end the discussion on the newspaper headlines. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak, and we appreciate it. We look forward to having you again.
All right. Thank you very much. We pray network will better.
Yes.
All right.
Our guest reviewer has been Hajia Zainab Okinu, the board chair, Blueprint newspaper, talking to us about some of the stories on the front pages of our newspapers. And that's how much we can take on the newspaper review segment. We'll take a short breather, and then when we return, we'll take a look at the headlines again and also other issues on the program. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that they look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
I thank you for staying. It's top of the hour. Let's take a look at the headlines again. Shekarau defects to PDP after 3 months in NNPP.
ASU extends 6-month-old strike indefinitely.
South Africa anti-corruption. Prosecutors arrest former executives logistics company Transnet.
Let's now take a look at the details. Former Governor of Kano State, Ibrahim Shekarau, has formally announced his defection from the new Nigeria's People's Party, NNPP, to the People's Democratic Party, PDP. This is coming barely 3 months after Shekarau defected to NNPP from the All Progressives Congress, APC. Shekarau made the declaration on Monday at his Mundubawa home in Kano. He was formally received into the PDP by the party's presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, and the party's national chairman, Senator Yosha Ayu, among other bigwigs. Shekarau also said he had written to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to announce his withdrawal from the senatorial race for Kano Central under the NNPP.
The Academic Staff Union of Universities on Monday extended its 6-month-old strike indefinitely until the federal government meets its demands. A member of the union who pleaded anonymity confirmed the development following a National Executive Council meeting of the striking teachers at the University of Abuja. He said that the union extended the industrial action after reviewing progress reports on ongoing negotiations with the federal government in the last 4 weeks when ASU rolled over the strike. Last week, the Minister of Education, Adamu, said the federal government had addressed most of the union's demands, including the release of 50 billion naira for the payment of earned allowances for academic and non-academic staff of universities.
Now, on the international scene, South African prosecutors have arrested several former executives at public logistics company Transnet, which is at the center of a high-profile investigation into corruption during Jacob Zuma's tenure as president. On Monday, South Africa's National Prosecuting Authority said Transnet's former chief executive officer, Brian Molefe, and finance chief, Anna Singh, were among 4 people held in connection with a multi-million-dollar corruption case. The arrested appeared before a court in Johannesburg on Monday and were granted a 50,000 around an equivalent of about $3,000 bail. An MPA spokesperson confirmed that the executives are facing charges of fraud and breaching public finance regulations linked to a $5.5 million corruption and fraud case surrounding the 2015 procurement of more than 1,000 locomotives. Transnet owns all of South Africa's rail, ports, and pipelines. It's the logistical backbone of the continent's most advanced economy.
All right, now in Kano, West Africa's biggest textiles market, Kantinkwari, is submerged by flood in Kano following downpour that lasted several hours. The flood takes over the space under Sheikh Karibalahi Bridge, still under construction, where small traders display their wares.
All right, now away from that, let's look at some more packages. Road ethics or safety rules are guidelines put in place to protect road users, be it pedestrian, cyclists, or motorists. But how many users are aware of the conventions and how many practice them? In this report, Chair Makan Wafo takes a look at the road ethics for pedestrians in particular. Let's take the report.
The road is a space consisting of many users who sometimes, if not most, will interface with each other. The motorist, who has to drive with the pedestrian and cyclist in mind, and vice versa. There are rules to help keep everyone safe and bring accidents to the barest minimum. To mention a few, use of pavement or suitable footpaths where provided. Walk on the left side of the road facing oncoming traffic where footpaths are not provided. Before you cross a road, look left, right, and look left again. When the road is clear, walk directly and quickly across while still looking out. Use a zebra or pedestrian crossing. There are many of these conventions which even children should be aware of. But how well do pedestrians know the road ethics put in place to safeguard them?
When crossing the road, you should always look left and right. You should always look to see if the traffic lights are the colors like green, red, yellow. When crossing the road, you should always follow the zebra crossing, not like where the cars pass.
I don't know what road ethics are.
I know about traffic lights. When it turns green or red, you should stop. If you are using the pedestrian, I can identify those ones. But I think it's more than that. So I'm not proud to say I don't know. I want to learn.
I know that some pathways like this are made for pedestrians, and also if you are to cross the road, you need to cross where there's a zebra crossing. But maybe unfortunately, some of us don't know this. Even some drivers, when you get to the zebra crossing, that's when they will speed up.
Is there a need to enforce these conventions, and what agency should do that? Certainly not the FRSC, if the FCT sector commander is to go by. He says though the Corps is saddled with the safety of all road users, its core mandate is to the motorist.
Road safety is a collective responsibility. Now, if you look at the Act establishing the road safety, the Act gives power to the Road Safety Corps in the area of vehicular movement. The road safety as an organization does not have the power to arrest individuals.
Nevertheless, the education of pedestrians on road ethics is a work in progress.
A sensitization of Nigerians on road ethics is a work going on, and we still have so much to do, but so much is being done to ensure that people get to know what they are supposed to do while they're on the road.
A lot has been said about road safety without any clear-cut agenda holding pedestrians responsible about protecting themselves on the road. Sadly, there are too many agencies on the road duplicating functions on the same space, and most of the time, not even doing the job right. Chiamaka Nwafor, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right, now residents of the Federal Capital Territory have called on FCT administration to properly regulate the activities of dispatch riders within the FCT. The call came following growing reports of excesses of the riders who many believe lack proper training on the use of roads and therefore cause traffic violations. Take a look.
Driving through the streets of Abuja, Nigeria's capital city, on any working day, one is likely to come across dispatch riders on their way to deliver parcels and messages from one end of the city to another. In most cases, these riders are seen going against traffic rules, which in some cases have led to serious accidents on the roads. This act of theirs make many people wonder if some of these dispatched riders are qualified and properly sensitized on the use of the roads by relevant authorities.
We have conditions we have set for them. First of all, before you ride that bicycle, you are supposed to have what we call rider certification cards. Before you get that, you are supposed to have passed through the training where you are taught the traffic codes. It is believed that you understand it. But what the complaint some of them are bringing up is the owners of this business will give them 10 minutes to go and deliver something from Nyanya to Lugbe, or 5 minutes to deliver at Kubwa. And the next thing they do is to look for the shortest cut. When you don't feel that your life means anything, government will prove to you that your life is important. Not only your life, the life of others. You don't have to be making use of the road and endanger the life of others. So we will preach all these things. It's for you to learn and imbibe them. When you fail to imbibe them and you go contrary to the provisions of the law, we will not hesitate to handle you the way the law says you must be handled.
Joshua Sunday is one out of the many dispatch riders plying Abuja roads. He tells us why some dispatch riders are most times in a hurry, which leads to traffic violations.
Some people that is order for the food, they normally, because the customer that is order that food, you pressurize on you to run, to meet up. Some of us have that accident, but you tell the person in your mind that look at what is happening though. It's not only me. Traffic there on the roads, I cannot be beating traffic. Beating the traffic and you have accident, you are on your own.
The head of Public Relations Office of the DRTS, however, urged dispatch riders to operate according to laid-down rules while helping to ease the service demands of numerous businesses in the Federal Capital City. Martia Umar, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Thank you, Mardia, for that report. Now, it's been 3 years since the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, which came with a series of lockdowns and deployment of several measures by the Ministry of Health to curb the spread of the infection. Vendors of non-pharmaceutical items are complaining of making little or no sales. Trust TV's Aisha Saliu takes a look at what has become of COVID-19 merchandise and now reports.
Accessing public places during the peak of the COVID-19 required wearing of face and nose masks, use of hand sanitizers, regular hand washing, and strict adherence to physical distancing, especially at social gatherings. There was also an advisory encouraging all to take the required number of the vaccine jabs, among other measures as stipulated by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control. These and more became the new norm, all in a bid to curb the spread of the dreaded coronavirus, reduce number of hospitalization and fatalities. But this has changed as people now gradually go about their normal lives without needing some of the non-pharmaceutical items that once came in handy as lifesavers.
Non-pharmaceutical products that were used against COVID-19, they have dropped drastically. In fact, far below 30%, because the government is no longer compulsory for the populace to use it again. So people use it whenever they want. So majorly it's people in the medical cycle, in the school, or in the ministries. They come to get it whenever they want, but not as before. We are not stocking more like before. The ones we stock, we are just we make sure that those ones are being sold.
With the relaxation of some of the COVID-19 protocols and the rise in the country's access and administration of vaccines, which, by the way, is yet to achieve the 70% herd immunity projection for the year 2022, as stated by the Federal Ministry of Health through the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, these vendors wish it is business as usual as they count their losses.
For some times now, I've been selling it, and during that COVID-19 period, we sell a munch, and I think some days we do sell, if not, we go home with 5,000, 7,000, but these days 1,700, sometimes 500. So it's very, 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 it has, since the drops of, maybe because most people are no longer using it again. Time now, somebody will tell you they are no longer using those masks, 15 naira. So you see, at the end of the day, nothing to show.
Affecting my business very well, because I feed myself from here during the COVID-19 period. But now, people are no more used to it.
Although the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19, while commending the country's vaccination feat so far in parts of the country, is advocating the continuous usage of the non-pharmaceutical items to avert further spread. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right, thank you, Aisha, for that report. Now, the skills of sewing used sacks and other leather products is not common in most communities. In this report, a respondent, Abubakar Abdullahi, visited a local sack sewing factory in Lafia, Nasarawa State, where an NCE graduate is leading a group of youths to earn a living. Take a look.
Angon Makama, where this local sack sewing factory is located, is one of the oldest areas in Lafia, the capital of Nasarawa State, and the most workers here are people who are born and brought up in the area. Mohammed Ubangari, an NCE graduate, is the head of this factory. He said he started learning the trade of sack sewing when he could not find a job after graduation. He said the trade has, however, been rewarding financially, adding that though the trade is not common, he has a quite number of youths and children who are working under him. he spoke extensively on the activities taking place in the factory.
We're getting our own customers, they have brought it for us, we buy it, and some others they also brought their own, we also saw it. And even in our own these premises, we saw it and sell it for who need it. We get many customers from some villages and the part of the boundaries of the Nasarawa state, they are buying. Even some people they live in the Benue state, they are buying this thing and spread this thing during some of the dry seasons. Even the rainy season, some they are covering their own materials. They don't want the water they are touching it.
He said the trade has been in existence for over 20 years and many have benefited from the proceeds of the business.
It is the work who also get a benefit because I use this work to assist myself in my own tertiary educations in college education Akwanga and assist myself with this work. And I didn't marry bait. I get many benefits in this work since I started this working. Why? Because I joined my own educations, joined my own life. I can't bother myself to need a government workers. No, I enjoy this work till my own ending of the life.
He then called on the government and other stakeholders to assist them with industrial machineries to be able to produce in large quantity and faster.
All right. With that, we'll go for a short break now. When we return, we're going to our first discussion of the day. Please stay.
All right, thank you for staying. If you are just joining, you're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital here in Abuja. We're about to take a look at the next discussion on the program. The Nigerian Medical Association has revealed that the country has a deficit of 315,426 medical doctors to cater to the health needs of its over 200 million people. According to the NMA, Nigeria's ratio of 1 doctor to 5,000 patients falls short of the World Health Organization recommended ratio of doctors to patients in the country, which should be 1 doctor to 600 patients. Using the latest United Nations population data for Nigeria, which is pegged at 215 million and 63,351, the NMA revealed that there are 43,013 doctors available to attend to all Nigerians, leaving a huge deficit of 315,426 medical doctors. To discuss the implication of this on the country's health sector, we have in the studio a medical doctor, Dr. Najib Usman, who will give us more insight on this. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Let me start by a more generalistic approach to this discussion, which is your assessment of the country's health sector as it regards the number of medical doctors we have.
Okay. Thank you so much. To be honest, we are in a very pathetic situation. This is a country of 200 million people with just less than 30,000 doctors practicing in Nigeria. If you look at the MDCN, which is the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria, on its register, there are about 80,000 doctors. But the number that is practicing in Nigeria is 30,000 or less. And week in, week out, every week, we are losing doctors. On average, every week, 10 doctors leave Nigeria for UK. This is reality. And the thing is, when these doctors leave Nigeria, Nigeria is losing. We lose money. Money in terms of the money that is invested in the trainings, and then money in terms of medical tourism. The Nigerian budget in 2022 for health sector is just 4%. That's about 700 billion naira. And annually, the amount that Nigerians spend on medical tourism is more than 650 billion naira. So just imagine, the country is spending 700 billion, and then Nigerians are exporting 650 billion to other countries.
So, why do you think that that's the case? Is it with the infrastructure? Is it with the health infrastructure? Or is it with the issue of lack of specialists that will attend to certain issues, health-wise?
Well, for specialists, we have the specialists. But let's talk about infrastructure. It's not there. We don't have it. The working environment is not encouraging. You see, the joy of any health care professional is to see a patient, offer your services, and then the patient should be back on his or her feet. That is the joy. That's all what we want. But just imagine a scenario whereby someone made it to the hospital, maybe an emergency unit, but the doctor is helpless. There's nothing he can do. The most basic of...
When you place the training
yes.
that you get, and the kind of things that you need, or the kind of things that you are shown during your training that you need to use,
yes.
while doing your job, and you look at what's on the ground,
yes.
in reality in the hospitals,
yes.
how balanced is that?
Well, it's not balanced. Although you see, even during the trainings, doctors and other healthcare professionals are taught how to improvise. 80% of what we do in the hospitals is just improvising. We just improvise. But it has come to a point where even to improvise is becoming very difficult, because to improvise, there are some basic things that you need.
Doctor,
yes.
A lot of Nigerians will agree with you that there is infrastructural deficit in some hospitals and all of that. Yes. But other sectors of the economy, other sectors of Nigeria also have this infrastructural deficit. But we don't see people, professionals in that sector, live in the country. So is that really the only reason why doctors are leaving? Because we also do know that we have heard reports where some doctors don't want to even be posted to rural areas. Yeah. So is it just because of this lack of infrastructure that doctors are leaving?
Well, infrastructure is one of the key factors. And then apart from that, there are other factors. But you see, it all comes back to the infrastructure. Okay, the other thing is the issue of getting the right skills. As a doctor or as a medical professional, you want to be trained, because it's a training, it's a process. So, and then as a doctor or as a medical professional, you don't stop learning, because every day we can just come up with a new disease. You just have to keep on learning. And that's something that is missing. That support. We don't have it here. So most of the times, you see that the medical professionals would be so helpless to the extent that there's nothing they can do. If we look at the rural maybe areas, even in the cities, we're having issues. You go to a hospital, a general hospital, something as basic as an oxygen cylinder is not there. That's one of the most basic. I have seen patients that have lost their lives because there is no oxygen, which is one of the most basic things that should be available in the hospital. So, and then when you treat patients, or when you see patients and then the patient keep on dying, you become demoralized, you know. Depression will set in. So those are the kind of things. It's not about the money, you know. People talk about the money, the remuneration. No, that is not it. It's not about the money.
It's not because the grass is greener at the other side.
That's not the reason. Because whoever is studying any health course, whoever is going into this practice, he or she knows that this is not a profession where you make money. We are not in it for the money. We are in it because of the passion we have for the profession. But when the basic things that you need are not available, you see that the passion will be dying out. That is the reason why you see many health professionals leaving the health sector, going to other sectors. They will be in business, they will be in policy and other things.
Okay, why do you think that our health sector is in such a bad shape? Is it issue of budgetary allocation, or is it issue of corruption? Like we hear about, you know, billions. You mentioned earlier how we have 700 billion naira and the rest of them. To be fair to the government, if you look at that amount, is one of the highest in, you know, if you compare, you know, other sectors in the country. So we have that kind of budgetary allocation.
Yes.
But would you say that that's not enough, or is a problem of corruption how that is not trickling down, you know, to where it's needed?
Okay. In 2001, that's what we call the Abuja Declaration. The head of state of the African Union came together and agreed that for each and every member country, they will be allocating at least 15% of their budget to health sector. For the past 4 years, we have consistently been at 4%. Remember, there was COVID. When COVID came, it was a different story. The devastation. We all witnessed what happened. So talk about 50. This is the recommended is 15%. We're not even off the 10. We're talking about 4%.
But it's the same with the educational sector also.
And
there's a percentage that is required by UNESCO as well.
And that's the reason why we are in the mess we are. Just look at ASU. ASU has been on strike for how many months? And then some of the lecturers are now leaving. They are also leaving.
Well, the Minister of Health says that every year Nigeria produces about 2,000 to 3,000 doctors, and that the number of people that leave yearly is now up to 1,000. So that as those people are leaving, the people that the universities are producing come in, and so it balances out. Do you agree with that?
Well, I don't know where the minister is getting his own figures, but let's talk basic. Okay. In 2020, because of the COVID-19, no doctor was graduated. And this is 2022. So for 2021 and 2022 session, no doctor will be graduated because of the strike. So let's assume that we are producing 1,000 as he said, or 2,000 as he said. Now for 2 consecutive years, we are not able to produce any doctor. So where do you fill up that kind of gap? And then the number of people that are living, like I said, on the MDC register, we have 80,000. And then the ones that are processing is just 30,000. And then when you talk about the people that are living, we're talking about people that have done their NYSC, don't have their house job, you know, people that have started, they have experience in the sector. You can't just graduate today and then start practicing. You have to go through another process. So we are losing people that have experience, people that specialists, we are losing them.
Yeah, that brings me back to what the minister also said. He said that they are working on a one-for-one policy whereby when one doctor leaves, another one is taken. When one nurse leaves, another one is taken. But then an expert said that, how do you replace a doctor of 15 years, a doctor that has 15 years experience with a graduate that comes in? So I'd like you to speak to that.
The thing is, you see, in medicine and in healthcare profession, experience is key. So someone that has been in the profession for 15 or 20 years is leaving. And then you get someone that just graduated from the university and say replace him. It's not working. We have come to the extent that medical students, before they even write their final exam in Nigerian universities, have started applying for license in other countries. That is the reality. Because they want to go there and specialize.
But should that be the case? Because those ones are still in school. You won't say that they have come out and have faced the situation in the hospitals where there's lack of equipment and all of that. That means that those ones already made up their minds not to practice in Nigeria.
It's not that they have made up their minds. Our trainings are done in hospitals. We learn from others. You have seen your elders, your senior colleagues. You have seen the troubles they are going through. Why will you stay? You see, depression, the number of doctors that are coming down with depression, suicidal attempts is high. We just don't talk about it. But we have heard of instances where doctors and healthcare professionals kill themselves, commit suicide. So the reality is this. We are in a country whereby a lot of things are not working. We understand that. But there are some things that are supposed to work. At least this is, we're talking about life and death situation. And then when we look at corruption, the budgetary allocation is 4%, but in reality what we have is maybe less than 2%. That is it. So corruption, poor infrastructure, lack of good working environment, poor remuneration, those are the things that are making people to leave.
Okay, there are those who say that, look, Nigeria, no doubt, is in a difficult situation right now. It's in a deep mess right now. And we need patriotic citizens that will salvage the country. So some are saying, where is the patriotism of some of the doctors that have been trained in our institutions at a very, low cost, institutions that are heavily subsidized by government and the rest of them? Others argue that, isn't it time? Isn't this an opportunity for these doctors to pay back, to do some kind of selfless service? Earlier you mentioned issue of passion and all of that. So where you find doctors having issue of remuneration as excuse for leaving the country, what would you say to that?
Well, to be honest, I think doctors or healthcare professionals are the most patriotic Nigerians. We are very patriotic, very selfless. We're not in it for the money. We're in it to just serve humanity. And that's why our oath, we saw an oath to protect life, to help life, to help the sick, the needy. That's just it. So when we talk about,
can that be said really about all doctors?
Yes, that's what we swear an oath to. And
that's the oath. That's the oath. But is that the reality?
That's the reality. That's the reality.
Of the issues.
That's the reality. But understand the situation. Like we said, as a doctor, as a healthcare professional, you shall do no harm. So when someone comes to you, and then there is nothing you can do, you are doing harm. So that's the reason why sometimes you have to leave. Go and help humanity. Go to other places that value your skills, that need your services.
But when
also,
you leave,
and then,
but when you leave Nigeria,
yes,
where the doctors are not enough,
yes,
are you not doing harm?
We are not.
Because you are leaving a vulnerable group of people without any doctor.
You see, the worst harm you can do to a system like the health profession is for you to see someone and then to not do anything. That's the worst you can do. You see, saving a life anywhere in the world is a life. You are here in Nigeria. Let me tell you a scenario, something that I also witnessed. Someone walked to the emergency room with just some mild conditions. The anesthesiologist is not available. Of course, it's a specialty. It's not available. The most basic of things that we need are not there. And then We tried all we could, but we lost the patient. It was a very sad day. I know of a doctor that was practicing in Nyobi for 5 years. He has been there, working for almost 14 or 15 hours a day. He had an accident. He couldn't pay for his own medical bills. He couldn't, and we lost him.
All right, but
we lost him.
As a doctor?
Yes, as a doctor, we lost him.
But some persons are saying that
Yes.
doctors are leaving because they believe that they'll get a better deal outside.
Okay.
Because if they didn't think that way, they would stay in Nigeria and continue to engage the government to see how things can be better. Don't you think so?
Doctors have been engaging the government. The Association of Resident Doctors recently issued an ultimatum to the government. You know, the doctors have been in, in talks with the government, but the issue is implementation. The one-for-one policy advocated by the minister, this is something that has been in the pipeline for almost 2 years now. So, the more we have this administrative bureaucracies, the more we delay any intervention, the messier the problem becomes. So maybe at the end of the day, after maybe all the negotiation and the rest, instead of maybe replacing 2 or 10 doctors, you will end up having a deficit of 100 doctors. Where do you come with that number? So to be honest, it's not about the money. We are not in it for the money. Most of the doctors, when they travel abroad, maybe it is practiced in other countries, they are there because of the skills. They want to get the skills. They want to have access to an enabling environment, an environment whereby when they intervene in anyone's life, they will see the impact and then they will be happy. That's just what we want.
All right, we'll take a short breather now, and then when we return, we'll continue our discussion on this, the Japa syndrome, what Nigerians call. Please stay with us.
Every patriotic Nigerian should hear this. Any politician who means well for the people will never allow themselves or their supporters to engage in any violent, destructive activities. No politician who truly wants to serve the people and develop the nation will encourage his followers to destroy properties or take human lives before, during, or after the elections. The Nigerian public must watch out for these traits and isolate any politician who encourages supporters to engage in violence. No genuine politician or patriot will cause trouble and seek to destroy the very society which they aspire to lead or develop. Politicians who have the good of the people at heart will not allow themselves or their followers to engage in violence, destruction of properties, and then taking of lives. Be vigilant. By their words you shall know them. Shun violence. Stay away from politicians who want you to do so. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
All right, welcome back. We're still with Dr. Majid. So we're talking, before we went on the break, we're talking about flight of doctors from Nigeria. And now I want to take you to the issue of the rural areas.
Yeah.
There have always been reports of doctors declining posting to rural areas. I would like you to speak to that.
Well, it's so unfortunate, to be honest. Doctors are supposed to practice wherever they are posted. But understand that it's a system, and then we have tiers, like it's a categorized system. There's the tertiary facility, and then you come to the secondary, and then the primary facilities. Most of what you have in the villages or rural areas are primary healthcare centers. And then those centers are designed not to be manned by doctors, the basic PHC. And then we have the comprehensive, which are supposed to be manned by a medical officer of health. That is someone who has done his housemanship and then has done his post-NYSC doctor, let's just call it that. So they're supposed to be manned by that. But how many do we have? You see, the thing is, I know of people who practice in the rural areas. Of course, I know some of them. And then there are people that, of course, declined those kind of postings. Sometimes, you see, as bad as it is in the urban area, it's worst in the rural area. So when people are complaining of lack of infrastructure, lack of needed medical equipment in the urban area, just imagine the situation in the rural area. So most of what we do is the primary healthcare facilities are manned by the community health extension workers and other people. And then their own job is just to identify basic things, offer basic treatment for things like malaria, typhoid, those kind of things. And if there's any need for doctor's interventions, they can refer. That's what the system. We have to rationalize. We have to ration resources.
But is that the ideal? Should we only have national? I mean, should we only have primary health care, at the rural level? Shouldn't we have, hospitals, proper hospitals, at those levels?
And that's one of the things we have been telling the government. Let's have these infrastructures. Let's have these hospitals in the rural area so that at least people can go there and practice.
Do you know that?
Like we said, this is a profession that needs training and retraining.
Due to lack of adequate doctors in the rural areas, the maternal death rate is still very high, despite introduction of technology and all of that.
Yes.
Does that bother the enemy, members of the enemy?
It bothers us. Having mortality rate of about, we don't want anyone to die. That's the reality, like I said. And it's a very high thing. Having a very high maternal mortality rate is something that bothers each and every one of us, because some of us are fathers, we have wives, we have sisters, we are family men, so we know the pain. And that's the reason why most of the interventions, most of what the government does is in the urban area, because they're the referral centers. People from villages, from rural areas are referred to maybe a general hospital or or a comprehensive hospital in town, or maybe in a local government area. So the number of doctors we have is not enough.
All right.
30,000 doctors. If you say, okay, in Nigeria we have 774 local governments. So divide that number, 30,000 by 774. So it's not.
Yeah, we saw a report that said that Nigeria has a ratio of 1 doctor to 4,000, between 4,000 and 5,000, instead of the WHO recommended 1 doctor to 600 persons. But how much of infrastructure can government make available to keep the doctors at home? Because that in itself is relative.
Yes. Yeah, it is. But what we need is just a working environment. An environment that is working. A hospital that is functional. Not what we have now. An empty hospital, where the most basic things are not available. That's what we need. See, in the 2022 budget, there's this report I read somewhere that the budgetary allocation to the State House Clinic which of course we know no one goes there, is more than the budgetary allocation to all our teaching hospitals combined. At a point, we had the First Lady complaining that the basic, equipment needed in the state hospital clinic are not there. So just imagine this kind of scenario, the situation we are in.
What must Nigeria do to be able to bridge this gap, this deficit that we have? What will it take us to be able to have as much as we need in terms of manpower?
What we need is simple. Let's implement the Abuja Declaration, or at least try to improve on what we are now, where we are now. The Abuja Declaration is 15% of the budget allocated to healthcare. Let's implement that, and then you will see the progress we will make. Because the money will go into trainings, it will go into building infrastructure, it will go into equipping our hospitals. So when we have that, people will not leave.
Do we have enough training institutions for medical personnel in Nigeria?
We don't. We don't. For a country of 200 million, as the minister said, based on his own figures, producing 1,000 to 3,000 doctors, 1,000 to 3,000 doctors every year is not encouraging. Mind you, we have a deficit of more than 300,000 doctors. That's the deficit. More than 300,000.
How many will we need to produce every year to be able to bridge that?
So you see, based on what the minister is saying, at the current rate, it will take us like 200, 300 years to bridge that gap. That's just the meaning.
But, Doctor, you also know that there's a general problem with the economy of the country.
Yes.
So what if the government is unable to implement the Abuja Declaration at this point because of lack of adequate funds? What can it do? What percentage of it can it do to at least manage the situation?
You see, there are other countries. Some countries have practiced that, like the 15% is a recommendation. And we are currently at 4%. That's less than 1/3 of the recommended percentage. So let's improve that. 10%, 4%, something better than this. And then when we improve it, let's make sure that most of the money is going into capital expenditure.
But the money is just not there. That's the impression that we get from government. I mean, this money we are seeing the budgetary proposal for 2023, and we have a deficit of 11 trillion. Right?
So just imagine now, okay, the budget is the amount of money that Nigerians are spending on medical tourism is 650 billion. This is something that we can trap here. We can use it here. 650 billion. So the government may not be able to finance it, fine, but the government can go into PPP, private-public partnership. That's something that government can look into. It's not bad. It's not people to be traveling to Egypt, India, to spend money on medical tourism. We can get similar thing here. Establish similar thing, and then we need that political will.
Okay,
for the government.
Yes. Considering to the fact that we have infrastructural problems in our healthcare systems.
Yes.
Is it as bad, such that it warrants the kind of medical tourism that we see happens, or is it the problem of lack of confidence on our own health institutions in Nigeria?
Okay, let me ask you a question. You see, if you want to improve a system, you have to lead by example. How many of our leaders do go to hospital in Nigeria? People that have access to the best of healthcare in Nigeria don't go to hospital in Nigeria. They leave. Why? Because they know that the system is collapsed. They know that the basic machines, equipment needed are not there. So they leave. So just imagine that kind of
situation. But you said
so,
they have best of medical.
That's it. People that have access to the best of facilities here in Nigeria. They know that what they have here in Nigeria is not up to.
Okay, what is considered best
what
here?
Is considered best? What's considered best here? It's not the ideal. So they go to other countries where they think they will get the ideal. That is just it. So, in a situation whereby, maybe if there was a time I was reading in one of the newspapers that the president has gone to UK for air infection. How many ENT specialists do we have in Nigeria? Many. But the president doesn't have confidence in his own health system. And he has to leave Nigeria. So what do you tell other Nigerians?
Well, that's a sad one. Unfortunately, we have
food
to
for
end.
thought.
Yes, it's a food for thought and a place for us to end the discussions. Thank you so much for coming on Daybreak and sharing your experience with us.
Thank you so much.
We hope that we get out of this as soon as possible as Nigerians. With that, we've come to the end of the program. In case you've missed, you can always catch up on all our social media platforms and also watch us live on YouTube. My name is Ayuba Ilya.
Thank you for welcoming us into your homes this morning. Do well to join us same time, same station tomorrow. My name is Stella Yaji. For now, do have a pleasant day.